2 points, a short one and a long one. The short one is simply this, to remind my colleagues that at the beginning of the year, we get a Senate calendar that says what days we're going to be in session and what days we aren't going to be in session. Between now and the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, we have 16 Fridays that we're supposed to be in session. Will we be in session on those Fridays? We've had a few Friday sessions this year so far, but I'm afraid if we don't count on being a little more devoted to a 5-day work week, those Fridays will slip away from us. I bring that to our attention because we always are complaining because we don't have enough time to do appropriation bills. These extra 16 days that we might not be in session would be a good amount of time to take care of the 12 appropriation bills that we have to do regularly. Now, I always say there's enough work for a senator, an individual senator, to do 7 days a week if he wants to work it. But you can't solve this country's problems if you're only in session 2.5 or 3 days a week. And that's what was the practice of the United States Senate before the Republicans took over. And Republicans are supposed to make a difference, and I think a big difference we can make in the United States Senate is showing that we're running in a business-like way the United States Senate, and that is to get more work done and particularly to do our separate appropriation bills instead of doing one great big 1,000-page appropriation bill just before government's ready to shut down. The second point, and a little longer, is to discuss for my colleagues the disastrous legacy of the Biden-Harris administration's Environmental Protection Agency. Sadly, the recent revelations of wasteful spending by the EPA under the last administration are no surprise. And if you're a Democrat and you get tired of Republicans complaining about something being wrong in the previous administration, hear me out, and I think you'll agree that a lot of things happened at the end of the last administration that are just a violent misuse of taxpayers' money. 2 years ago, I wrote to the Biden EPA about a program called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. I asked a very simple question: how the EPA planned to administer and oversee the taxpayers' money that was going to be spent by the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. I also expressed doubts about the EPA's handling such a large program given the agency's lack of oversight of how they expend the taxpayers' money. And as you would expect, I requested its plans to ensure this money would be spent responsibly. Now, these are pretty simple questions that Congress and the taxpayers ought to be given an answer to. In its response to my letters, the Biden EPA gave me lip service about its commitment to the oversight of the spending of the money in the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. The Biden EPA said it would require, quote, rigorous, transparent risk management and accountability measures, end of quote. Now, if they had actually done that, that's a responsible way of handling the taxpayers' money. But the Biden EPA failed to describe how it would accomplish all of that rigorous transparency and also answer the questions that I asked them to answer. And clearly, then, based upon the Trump administration's recent revelation of fraud, waste, and abuse, EPA's response to me was really, in the end, nothing but lip service. For example, in December of last year, the Biden-Harris administration, near its end, Brent Elfrun, EPA's special advisor for implementation, was actually filmed saying the agency had rushed taxpayer money out the door. That EPA official called the effort an insurance policy against the incoming administration, Trump administration, to make sure that the money was out the door so the Trump administration couldn't stop it. The EPA official also stated, now this is Brent Elfrun, quote, "It's like we're on the Titanic and we're throwing gold bars over the edge," end of quote. The EPA official said his job was, quote, "just how to get the money out as fast as possible before they came in and stopped it all," end of quote. The they he was talking about is the new Trump administration. Now, this conduct is an example of the contempt and the lack of respect that the previous administration had for the American taxpayers' dollars. In January of this year, I met with Lee Zeldin in my office before his confirmation as President Trump's EPA administrator. I was encouraged by his shared commitment to transparency and accountability. After he took office, after Mr. Zeldin took office, I wrote to him asking that he find the gold bars, so to speak, and take steps to get this taxpayers' money back that was shoveled out the door in the last few days of the previous administration. Since that letter, Administrator Zeldin found that in the months leading up to President Trump's taking office, the Biden-Harris EPA sheltered $20 billion of the greenhouse gas reduction fund out of the Treasury at Citibank. Now that's a lot of gold bars. Administrator Zeldin explained this unprecedented move by the Biden EPA was done to protect the program from government oversight. This revelation shows the Biden EPA not only obstructed my investigations, but the oversight assurances it tried to offer me were dishonest. Administrator Zeldin also referred this mismanagement to the EPA Acting Inspector General and noted that there's an ongoing FBI investigation. I'm encouraged by what Administrator Zeldin has done so far, and I expect him to provide records responsive to my inquiries showing the Biden EPA fraud, waste, and abuse. Now, a closer look into the recipients of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund exposed several ethical red flags. Jahi Wise, President Biden picked to lead the program, oversaw a $5 billion grant to his former employer. That employer is the Coalition for Green Capital. And on August 8th, 2024, quote, build the National Green Bank and a network with self-sustaining community leaders in every state, end of quote. Another $2 billion taxpayer dollars went to an organization called Power Forward Communities, and on August the 8th, to reportedly offer financing for residential carbon emission reduction projects, end of quote. Power Forward Communities is made of 5 non-government organizations, including Rewiring America. The leadership of this group is full of familiar faces from past Democratic administrations, and I'll give you 4 examples. Sean Donovan, listed on Power Forward's tax documents as the director and co-chair, was President Obama's Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Ari Matuzashek, also listed as a director and co-chair, served as special assistant to President Obama and director of private sector engagement in the Obama White House. The vice president of Rewiring America is Cammie Croft, deputy director in the Obama White House and senior advisor in the Obama Department of Energy. And then a name that's pretty famous to anybody in politics and really famous in Georgia is Stacey Abrams, the failed gubernatorial nominee that President Obama campaigned for, is reportedly senior counsel for Rewiring America. The FBI and the EPA Office of Inspector General must fully investigate this situation and determine where the money was used to line the pockets of well-connected Democrats. As my oversight has shown, the legacy of Biden-Harris administration EPA will be one of unprecedented spending with no accountability and transparency. This blatant lack of discipline and lack of respect for the taxpayers' monies enabled EPA's left-wing allies to profit at the expense of the American taxpayer. All the while the Biden EPA obstructed my efforts to conduct independent and objective oversight. President Trump and Administrator Zeldin must return the EPA to its mission of protecting the health of our environment while spending taxpayers' dollars with transparency and accountability. My message to the new Director of EPA, Administrator Zeldin, is this: keep exposing waste, fraud, and abuse, and provide all the records. I yield the floor.